something for one of the email sending use case? Did you guys get a chance to create an email template and probably use Process Builder to send email? Just try that one, because email template and sending email is one of the most common scenarios that you face. Like any company that using Salesforce would definitely wants to send emails. Now let's talk about a topic called record types. I mean, this is one of the most common topic. Most common use case that you will find in any implementation of Salesforce, and it also has like a huge importance from business process perspective. Okay, so let's talk what record type is. First of all, let's talk what record type is. Okay, so I mean, if you want to define it, it's like creating record of different type. Like let me show you what this is. Okay, let's go to Conference Management Hub here. Okay, so in the Conference Management, in the session, right? Like we are creating a session. So we are creating a session called, in that we have topic, we have schedule, time, level, and all that stuff. Okay, now what if we want to categorize this conference, the sessions into different types. For example, we want to categorize webinars and webinars versus live classes. We want to differentiate these things, and at the same time, we want to have a different UI for these things. Okay, so you see here, we are creating a session here. We are creating a session, and basically for this, we are just using the same page layout, same UI, same fields, everything to be able to create a session. What if, like I mentioned, what if our requirement is, we want the sessions can be of different types, right? There can be live classes, there can be webinars, there can be, a conference, like a conference at a different location. It can be a hackathon. So there can be different types. Now, what we want, and different types might require different things. For example, if it is a webinar, right? Let's say you are trying to do a webinar. For a webinar, do we need address information like street, city? All these things are not needed. What do we need? For a webinar, we need what is the, the webinar link? What is the password for it? Stuff like that. Whereas, if it is a conference, if it is a conference that is happening at a certain location, there is no point in having what you call the webinar link, password, and stuff. If it is a conference that is happening, we need, of course, street, city, country, and all that. Okay. Now, if it is an international conference, of course, we might need country. If it is a local conference, now, without even writing code, Salesforce allows us to customize our UI like that. Okay, I think you all know that we have something called as a page layout, right? On the page layout, we went to the object manager. I'll just show you what page layout is. We are in object manager. So let me go to session object. On the session object, if you see, there is something called page layout. Okay, if you see the page layout here, you see this is the layout where we are changing the fields. We can organize the fields. We can create another section too. For example, I can create another section like this here. So I'll just say address. I'll just say address, that's it. And then, what I can do is I can drag this street, city, country, state, and postal code fields here. So, and I can just save this one. Now, if you go here and refresh, you see, there is a section that got created, and in that, you have the fields here, fields that are properly organized. Now, there will be some objects where you will have 4 to 500 fields, and you might want to, like, of course, you cannot clutter the fields, right? You would want to categorize those fields meaningfully, and then, that's where the page layout really helps to be able to configure those. So without even writing a single line of code, we are basically building the UI by using an out-of-the-box feature called as page layout. Okay, that's good. But where does record type come in picture? Like, the name itself is record type. Okay, so let's start with an example. Let's take an example of let's create 3 different record types. One is webinar record type, another is conference record type. Let's just do a webinar record type and a conference record type. Let's just go with 2 record types. Okay, so how I go to the object. Okay, and if you see, there is an option called on the object. Like, I'm on the session object. Like, I go to the object manager, then I go to the session object. Okay, and in the session object, you see something called record types here. Like, click record types, and then I just click new. Okay, so the record type name, I'll give it as webinar. Okay, I'm enabling this record type for all the like all the profiles that we have. For now, we only have one page layout, so we are just using that page layout and hit save. Okay, so this is one record type. Then I'll create another record type called conference. I'm going to make this active too. I'm going to enable this as well for all the profiles. I mean, again, we will learn about these profiles and stuff later, but you have a basic idea of what a profile is. Okay. Let me just save. Okay, so now what we have 2 record types. Okay, a conference record type and a webinar record type. Okay, so in the object itself, in the session manager object itself, let me add a field called a URL type field. Okay, let me add just a URL type field called webinar link. Okay, just save. Just for the example purpose, I created this field. Okay, now let me go back to the app here. Okay, let me go back to the app. Now you see, I want to create a record. Okay, now if you see, if I want to create a record, it is asking, hey, which type of record that you want to create? Because I created 2 record types, right? One is a webinar record type, and another one is a conference record type. So it's asking me, because we created previously, when we hit save, we were just directly going to the place where we will be able to create fields. But now when I click new, it's asking us, hey, which type of record that you want to create, webinar record type or a conference record type. Okay, so if you are about to create a webinar, you will choose webinar record type. If you are about to create a conference, like, because within session, see, the session is the same table. It's the same record. It's just that we are trying to categorize. Okay, like we are just trying to categorize the type of record that we are going to create. Okay, it's all the same table, but for us to identify what kind of record it is, we are using a feature called as record type. Okay, so it's not a table or anything. It's not even a subtable. It's just everything is the same. It's just a category that is helping us to do this. Okay, now you see, we have webinar, we have conference. Let me just create a webinar. Okay, and now you see, so we have webinar link. The topic is this webinar, and then agenda is fine, date time is fine, end date time is fine, level is fine. But for a webinar, we don't need this address information at all, right? Like, why do we need address information? So until this, like if you notice, for a webinar, information like this information is way more than enough. You really don't need this address information at all. It's useless. It's cluttered information. Okay, and at the same time, let's go to a conference. If you go to conference, most of the information is important, but the webinar link probably might not be important because, a conference happens at a physical location and, so because it happens at a physical location, the address information is valid, but, we might not need this webinar link. Okay. So how do we achieve that? That means what we are saying is, depending on the type of the record that you want, like within session itself, depending on the type of the session that you want to create, we want to configure the UI differently for the user. Okay. You see, that's why an object can have lots of fields. Okay. An object can have lots of fields, but depending on our business requirement, depending on our use, we will create record types, and we should have the ability to be able to customize the page layout too. How do we do that? Let's talk about how to do it. Okay. So I'll go to page layouts. Now you see, I'll just click new page layout. I will clone it from session layout. Like, Salesforce doesn't allow us to create a brand new page layout from scratch. We need to choose from existing page layout. That makes our life easy. So I'll just say session layout, and I will name it as webinar layout. Okay, I'll just name this as webinar layout. Okay, so here is the page layout. For webinar, what did we talk about? We don't need this address information, right? We really do not need this address information. So what I'll just do is, you see here, I'll come here, I'll click this minus icon. So the address information is gone, and I'll just, I'll just, I have adjusted my field and hit save. So, you have, I created a page layout called webinar layout, and in the webinar layout, if you see, I removed the address information section. I only have the webinar link, number of speakers, the common fields that I have. Okay, that's good. Now I'll just create another layout. Okay, I'll copy it from the same layout. I'll call it as conference layout. Okay, so I'll create conference layout. And in the conference layout, what do we need? We don't need this webinar link, right? So I'll just click, I'll just, I'll just do that, took it away. And remember one thing, the things that you can do in page layout, there are other things that you can, not only like, removing section, adding section, but you can also do things like this. For example, I can come here and I can just make it required. You see, I can make this end time also required. Okay, hit save. So for conference layout, for conference layout, what did I do? I made the schedule time and end time as required fields. Okay, where did we make it? We made it at the page layout level. Okay, on the webinar layout, if you notice, the schedule time and end time are not required. I'm just playing around with the page layout. So the whole point that I want to make here is, so when you create a page layout, one thing that you can do is you can create sections, you can organize the fields. That's one option. At the same time, if you want to prevent users from deleting, you see, you can delete this. But if you don't want them to clone, you can remove this button. Okay. Again, if you want, you can put these buttons back to, if you can go here, you can disable some of the functionalities by exposing or not exposing the button. If you don't show the delete button, right, they will not be able to delete. If you don't show the clone button, they will not be able to clone. So if you have a requirement where you want to give the users the ability to clone webinar kind of records, but not, the conference kind of records, you can custom, because you have a page layout, because you have your own page layout, you can determine whatever that you want. You can really determine which buttons to show up, which fields to show up and stuff. Now, the other thing that what I done is, on the conference layout, if you notice, I made this, by clicking this wrench icon, I made this field required. Okay. Now, what is the difference between making a field required at the field level versus the page layout level? You see, if you make the field required at the field level, while creating the field itself, we have an option called required. If you mark it as required, it is universally required. What I meant that is, that field is required at the database level. We are putting a constraint at the database level saying that that field is required. Okay, if you make that field required at the field level, whereas if you make a field required at the page layout level, that field is required only on that page layout. That means if a user is typing the information from that page layout, that's when it is required. Okay, it is not required, like the Salesforce will not enforce that required rule from the back end. If you're creating data from Workbench, or if you're creating data, like if you're not using that page layout, the field will not be required. Okay, I mean, good use case is this one. Hey, you know what? We have a requirement where for if it is a webinar, like start time and end time is not mandatory, whereas if it is a conference, the start time and end time are mandatory. So you can do it two ways. One way is you can write a validation rule that says if the record type dot name is equal to webinar, and if start time is blank or end time is equal to blank, throw a validation. You can do that. Or if you want to give a bit flexibility, you can customize the page layout in such a way that whenever somebody is accessing, when a user is accessing the page layout, they will be able to, the field will be required. Okay. Now, what did we do? So we created a couple record types and we created two page layouts. Just because we create a record type and page layout, nothing happens. We need to assign it, right? We need to say, hey, if a user selects this record type, show this page layout. If the user chooses a conference record type, show the conference layout. We need to make that, right? So if you see, there is an option called page layout assignment here. Okay. So if you look at this, there is an option called page layout assignment. You click this and you click edit assignment. Let's talk about system admin profile. For system admin profile, for conference, okay, we want to assign the conference layout, and for webinar, we want to assign the webinar layout. Okay, so for system administrator profile, for conference record type, I'm assigning the conference layout. For webinar record type, I'm assigning the webinar layout. Okay, now let me go back here. Let me go back, just refresh this and just click new. So if I choose webinar and click next, you see, you're not seeing the address information. Because we removed, because for webinar record type, we assign the webinar layout, right? And hence you're not seeing the address information. Whereas if I go new and if I choose conference, you see, schedule, start time and end time are required. You're not seeing the webinar link, but you're seeing the address information. Okay. So again, why is, rather than we building using lot of code and configuring the UI and everything, Salesforce gave us this beautiful option that hey, you can create your page layout, create your record type, and assign that page layout to a record type so that it's easy. Now you might get a question when I said this. When I said, hey, we want to create a record type. We want to name one record type as webinar and one record type as conference. You might have a thought like, okay, why do we even want to create a record type? Why can't we create a pick list? Why can't we create a pick list and call that pick list as type and, have two pick list values. One is webinar and one is conference, and choose the type of the webinar. Good. That absolutely solves the problem. But the record type has, by creating the record type, you have more features that are available. Especially one of the greatest feature of having a record type is you can create page layout and, you can use that record type page layout assignment matrix to be able to assign a page layout to the record type. This way, depending on the record type that is being used, you can configure or, you can configure the UI. Does it make sense? So just to recap, we created two record types first. One is called webinar record type. One is called conference record type. Then we created two page layouts. One is a webinar page layout. Then another one is a conference page layout. And then we use this on the page layout or on the record type. You see something called page layout assignment section. So we use this page layout assignment section to assign we use this section to assign a conference layout to conference record type and webinar layout to webinar record type. Okay?
Shravan,
Yes.
from a object point of view, there are no changes, right? So
No changes.
wherever you insert the record or anything, it doesn't change
Ex-
anything. It will be
No, it doesn't change at all. That's the first point. Like nothing changes at all. It's just that by creating a record type, you are adding another field. That's it. Like you're adding another field to category, but it's just a special field that Salesforce uses in the backend to provide us the ability to configure the UI, like the page layout and stuff. But the table place where it is stored, the validations that you write, the object API, nothing changes. Record type is nothing, but you're just like again, this concept of record type doesn't exist in any database. Record type is nothing but it's just a column in the table. It's just a column. So if you take SQL or Oracle from the database, from the core level, there is no difference. This record type is a Salesforce thing. Like Salesforce as a platform is giving us that feature called record type, where if you create record types, they are automatically configuring us the UI. Like they have some backend code that is written that when you click new, they open a pop-up like this, and when you click this, they configure they
so it is
configure the
just
UI like that.
for it is a feature for user friendly. Like
Yes,
whoever is
exactly,
more interested in webinars,
exactly,
for them the screen will be like this, or with the only
exactly,
the fields which they want, and for the other type, that's all. Apart
ex-
from that, there is
exactly.
no importance
No change.
at the object level.
Yes, yes. From the object level, yeah, absolutely. It's not important. And if you are building your own custom UIs, if you are doing everything your custom UIs, yeah, record type has not that much significance. Okay. Whereas if you are using a standard layout, like by using page, but it's pretty powerful, right? Like the way you can configure the UIs, it's pretty. You can do some magical things with the record type and page layout assignment.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you notice one thing here, notice one more thing here. Like if you go to page layout, let's say record type. Okay. You see this? This matrix is a three-way matrix. Notice this. We are saying for conference, for conference record type, assign the conference layout. For webinar record type, assign the webinar layout for profile level. So it is a three-way matrix between profile, conference, and webinar. For example, see, in the place where I work, right? Like we have this is one of the most common requirements. So we have 4 different groups. Okay, I'll give you an example. It's a live example that I use. Okay, so we have 4 different groups. One is called tax group. One is called advisory group. One is called consulting group. One is audit group. Okay, so within our company is divided into the business of the whole company is divided into 4 different business categories. Now, all these 4 groups use the same Salesforce instance. Okay, same Salesforce instance. They use the same opportunity object. They use the same contact object, same lead object, same everything same. But you see, the business is totally different, right? The tax business group, their business line, I mean, it is very similar, but the type of customers they deal with, the type of information that they capture is totally different from an audit business group, okay, or like an advisory business group. So, I mean, they are using the same objects like opportunity, account, and contact, but the question, like, let's say lead, they are capturing a lead. Now, if you are in consulting business, okay, if they are doing consulting business, the questions that they ask will be, hey, what kind of implementation that you are looking at, which industry that you are in, things like that. Whereas if you are a tax business, when you are talking to your potential lead, you will talk about, hey, W2, social securities, W9s. It's the same lead object. The common fields like first name, last name, company are same, but after that, the fields will, the type of information that you capture for one business line are totally different from other business lines. So what do we do? We every time, like on every object, if you notice in that company, we have 4 record types: tax, advisory, audit, and consulting, and we have 4-page layouts. Actually, 5-page layouts. Okay, 4-page layouts are nothing but tax, advisory, consulting, audit. That's what I said. Same record type, 4 record types. I said 5 layouts because we will have another layout called as system admin layout. So along with these 4 layouts, we have another layout called system admin layout. Now, in the same way, we also have 4 different profiles. Like just like this, you see here lots of profiles. Eh? We have created 4 custom profiles called as a tax profile, an audit profile, a advisory profile, and a consulting profile. Now, what would happen here? If you come, you see 4 record types. So we have 4-page layouts. So we assign for tax, like we assign 4 different layouts. But for system admin, we always assign system admin layout. Now, why do we need a system admin layout? Because on tax, on tax layout, we only display the fields that the tax business wanted. On advisory, we only put the fields that the advisory business wanted. But as a system admin, we don't care because we don't create records in system. We just want to have the debugging ability. So for system admin profile, we keep all the fields on the layout. Like all the fields that are present on the object will be present on the system admin layout. So what happens? It's a 3-way matrix. So when a tax person logs in, when a user with the tax profile logs in, and when they choose the record type as tax, the questions or the fields that they see are very specific to tax. Now, when an audit person logs in, the questions, everything will be very specific to audit. When a system admin, as a system admin with system admin profile, when I log in, I see everything because for me, it doesn't matter which group or anything. But for them, for the salespeople, it really matters like what they are showing so they can do their work very easily. Now, are we using different objects? No, it's the same object, but we are using this record type to be able to create those different flavors. I think flavor is the right word. Within the object, we are creating different flavors, and using this page layout and all, we are giving that super awesome experience for them. Okay. I can talk about numerous examples. In another project, we have same 4 groups: Care Meridian, Neuro, ADH. Like we have 5 different groups of users using the same org. Same, most of the business is same, but again, everybody wants a flavor of their own records. Same thing, 5 record types, 5 different page layouts, assigning the record types to page layouts, and this is like one of the most powerful and one of the most widely commonly used features. Okay, does it make sense? Like in real world, how we use record types and page layouts, and what powerful feature it brings?
Yeah.
Guys, anybody? Any questions? Anybody on this?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, okay, I just want to tell you one even more awesome feature of record types, and this is the one that you will face, that you will be like, you will literally be using so many times. Okay. Now, let's assume, okay, let's just assume. Now, let me create new in webinar. I'm just making up a requirement so I can explain it to you. It might not be the real case. So you see this pick list here, we have beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Okay. So let's say we do webinars only for beginner and intermediate. We don't do advanced like here. Of course, just assume a scenario where the webinar should be done only for beginner and intermediate level. Webinar should be done, whereas for conferences you can do beginner, intermediate, and advanced. You see this drop down here. We all know the dependent concept, but here what we are saying is, hey, we have a requirement that says the webinar should only be applicable for beginner and intermediate. It should not be applicable for advanced, whereas the conference can be for beginner, advanced, and intermediate. Now, one thing, we can write a validation rule. Of course, you can simply write a validation rule that says, hey, if somebody chose the level as advanced and the record type is webinar, throw an error saying, hey, webinars cannot be used for advanced. Of course, we can write a validation loop. But look at the good thing that Salesforce offers here. Okay, let's go to record types. Okay, I'm on the record type. I'll go to webinar. Okay, I will choose level. Level is the pick list field. And I'll just say I'll remove this advanced. Okay, so I went to webinar record type, and I clicked on edit, and I removed the value advanced from here. Let's see what the impact is. You see, you only see beginner and intermediate. Now, whereas if you click new, you choose conference, you see all three. Like, look at that. Look at the ability that record type is doing. It's the same field. Like, level is the same field. It has certain pick lists. But what we are able to do is, if it is webinar, we are only showing 2 values. If it is conference, we are showing 3 values. Okay? Now, similarly, I mean, so many examples where in the previous example I gave you, right? Tax, audit, like different business groups. They all might have a pick list field called product. Okay, interesting. Let's say on a lead object, the product you are interested in. Like one of the pick list might be, you might have a pick list called product you are interested in. That's a pick list. Now, for tax offers different products. Audit offers different products. Consulting offers different products. Now, would we create 4 different fields like tax product, audit product? No, we don't create that, right? We just create one field, add all the product values there. But because we have this record type, what we do is we'll just assign, okay, for tax, only assign the tax related values. For this way, when you choose a tax record type, the pick list, the drop down is only showing you whatever the values that you want to see. That's like the record types really give you 2 major advantages. One biggest advantage is it gives you the ability, it gives you the ability to be able to configure the page layout. Like, you can assign the page layout with profile, so you can configure the UIs, make the UI so dynamic. And then the other one is it helps you to configure the pick list values. Within the same field, just the pick list values. You can make sure what pick list values are available for what. Okay? And look at another one. You see, you can choose a default value also. Let's say if you want, here is like this. The default value for this pick list for which record type for webinar is beginner. Okay? Let me just choose for conference, I'll choose the advanced. Okay, I'll just save it. And now, if you go here, just click new for webinar. You see, you are seeing beginner already. If I do the same thing for conference, you see advanced. So, I mean, these are, they might appear very tiny, easy features, which are easy too. I mean, they are not hard. They're very, very easy. But, oh man, I love record types in Salesforce, especially record types and page layouts. If you are using, if you are not a completely customized shop, like where you are not building the UI. One of the projects that I work, I used to work where we only build we don't have standard page layouts at all. We don't use the standard page layouts at all. So, there the record types doesn't make much sense because, because we don't use the standard page layouts that Salesforce gives. Record type doesn't have much power. Whereas, I've seen a lot of implementations where people wanted to do standard things. Their this record type and page layout assignment gives you such flexibility. Okay? See, here is the thing. Salesforce advertises themselves as no software. That means they do not want people to write code. They want to prove that without writing code, you can build as powerful apps as possible. And that's what they strive for. Like, previously when Salesforce started building this platform, They didn't have these features like process builder, workflow, email templates, email alerts, field updates. They didn't have that. But what they do is they give you a feature, and there will be some scenarios where you have to write code to achieve things. Like before, previously, if you want to send an email, you should write code to do that. But what they do is they take that scenario that we are writing code, and they come up with some configuration items like this. They come up with this configuration things on how we can do that, and then they will give us the ability to be able to configure it. That way, even business analysts or system admins will be able to create powerful apps. Okay, I mean, because you really do not have to know code to be able to do all these, right? Like sending emails, field updates, customizing the page layout, creating an object, creating an app, creating tabs, configuring the page layouts, making fields required, writing validation rules, writing formula fields, calculating the formulas, performing field update, business. Like we have done so many things so far, but we didn't even touch the topic of code yet. I think that's the biggest selling point of Salesforce, where people with no coding or doesn't even know code can do lots of powerful things. And this is one of the interview questions that people ask you. They ask you, hey, I have a requirement. When I get a business requirement, what would you do? Would you want to write code, or would you want to configure? Like, would you want to do some configuration? Sometimes people might think that if you say, hey, I would want to code, it might look cool and you might get a job, but that's absolutely wrong. In Salesforce world, I'm not sure on the outside, in Salesforce world, out of the box, like whatever standard configuration features that Salesforce gives, people want to do that because it's less cost, it's easy, it's available out of the box. We don't have to test or anything. So that's why, your answer should be, I would try to leverage the out-of-the-box features. If I'm unable to solve it through out-of-the-box features, that's when I would go for coding is what you should say. If something is possible or resolved through out-of-the-box, then you should absolutely go for out-of-the-box and not write code. Okay. Now, this used to be the question that I'm about to ask. Used to be a huge, used to be a compulsory question in all the interviews people used to do. I don't think people may not be asking it anymore. But I still want to test it because it's a good question. Based on things that you have learned so far, how can you make a field required in Salesforce?
While creating the object, validation rule, and page layout.
Sorry, while creating the object?
While creating the field in object level.
Mm-hmm.
Validation rule.
And okay.
This one, page layout.
Okay, good. So what is the difference between making the field required at the page layout level versus making the field required at the field level?
There can be different page layouts. So only on that page layout, that field will be mandatory something. But if you make it at a object level, it will be like on database level. So it will be mandatory.
Yes. That's good. I love the word that what you use, the database level. So if you say if the field is required at the database level, no matter where you are creating from, whether you are using code, whether you are using web services, whatever you use, that field is required. It has to have a value. There is no other way around it. Whereas if you make a field required on the page layout, only on the UI, only when the user is operating from that page layout, the field is required. Otherwise, the field is not required. Okay. Now, I want you guys to do a little bit a fun exercise. Not I just want you guys to try this. It'd be cool. It'd be really, really cool, and gives you 3, 4 concepts. Okay, on opportunity. Okay, can you please make a note of it? Okay, so let's say let me create an opportunity here. Okay, so I want you to do this. When you create an opportunity in prospecting, okay, here is my requirement. When you create an opportunity with stage prospecting, please note it down, the stage names and everything. When you are creating an opportunity with stage prospecting, I do not want to see any related list like products or notes and attachments, contact roles, stage history, nothing. I don't want to see anything. When you are creating in prospecting, I don't want to see anything. Whereas when the stage is proposal price quote, okay? When the stage is proposal price quote, I want to see all these related lists, okay? And at the same time, if the stage is closed last, I want these related lists to go away. Okay, we call these as related lists, right? The things that you're seeing are related lists. So the requirement is simple. I mean, not simple. It gives you what you call experience in using 3, 4 things together. Like, we learned page layout separately. We learned record type separately. We learned process builder separately. But this exercise will give you the ability to, to use all these 3 or 4 things together. Okay. I just want to repeat my requirement. If I make this as prospecting, if my stage is prospecting, I shouldn't see any of these layouts. Okay. I mean, these related items. I want to see this. I still want to see this layout or the details of the field, but I don't want to see this related item. If I make this proposal price quote, yes, I want all these things to appear, like the products, notes and attachments, contact roles, everything should appear. Now, if I make it close last or prospecting, if I make close last or prospecting, I don't want to see any of these items again. Like, just when I say items, these related items. Is that clear? Like what we want to. I just want to give a hint. So basically, what we need is at least 3 record types, at least. Like, one would be a prospecting record type, another would be a proposal price quote record type, another would be and one more thing. Sorry. One other thing is, when the record is closed won or closed lost, I want all the fields to be logged. Okay? I just want all the fields to be logged when the record is closed won or closed lost. Okay? First thing, if it is prospecting, I don't want to see this. Okay? If it is proposal price quote, I want to see this. I want these things to appear on it. If it is closed won or closed lost, it's okay. Don't remove this. If it is closed won or closed lost, I want these fields to be logged. When I say logged, I want these fields to be read only. Okay? I mean, this is one of the most common scenario that is used by. If you do this, you are very good with page layout concept, record type concept, approval, like the process builder concept, everything. You will be good with all these things. And you don't really have to worry about other stuff. Okay? So did you get the requirement? Anybody has any question on the requirement? Prospecting, no related items. No related items. proposal price quote, I want to see the related items. When it is closed won or closed lost, I want the fields to be just read only. Now, one of the things, you might not know the whole information, but I want you to Google it and come back with an approach. The reason why I say this is, here is the thing. The reason why I say there is a philosophy behind it. So you see, Salesforce introduced the concept called web components very recently. I mean, they released it on December 22nd. It's December 20 or somewhere around. It's a completely brand new framework of building the UI. So far, they had Visual Force, they had Lightning components, and in December 20, they introduced the concept called Lightning Web Components. Okay, I mean the difference is, if you are aware of JavaScript frameworks, the Lightning framework is two-way binding, and Lightning Web Component is one-way binding. Now, do I know what these are? Absolutely not. I'm not a JavaScript expert. I know JavaScript. I've done some JavaScript. I'm not a JavaScript expert at all. So, no, I built lots of Lightning components. So I learned the Lightning components and I built lots of Lightning components. But I've never done anything. I've never heard of web components. So web components is a new concept. So Salesforce want to do things similar to React.js. React Facebook's framework, that's React.js. Salesforce want to do that. So now the things in Lightning, the regular Lightning framework is two-way binding, whereas in what you call the Lightning Web Component is one-way binding. Okay. At this current point of time, I only know that Lightning Web Component is one-way binding. I really do not know anything about it. Okay, but I'm absolutely confident that if I have to build a Lightning Web Component, I will be able to build it. Like I'm just confident about it. Okay, not because I know the framework, but I'm like, I can Google it. I'll get an example. I'll just use that example to be able to do the same thing. Now, the reason why I wanted to give that example is it's just the mindset. Like when I say the mindset, because you're learning it new, right? Because you're learning the technology new, you would be like, oh, you know what? All these people are experienced. They know it. I might not know it. Okay. And, that's just creating an excuse for ourselves. It's, there is documentation. Without documentation, nobody, not even like Salesforce engineers, people who work on Salesforce, not even Salesforce engineers will be able to do everything because they only work on tiny pieces of these things. Nobody will be able to do. Without documentation, no technology will be there. There will not be any developer in the world. Okay. So it doesn't matter whether you know it, whether somebody is working from 10 years or whether somebody is working for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. You just, you go to the documentation, you try it, and you do it. That's it. So even here, you might be like, oh man, I don't know how to create. Like you already have some idea that you need to create record type, you need to create page layouts, you need to make fields read only, you need to hide the related list and all that stuff. But I've left few things too. Like I didn't cover how to remove related list. Like, when you're modifying the page layout, I didn't tell you how to remove related list or how to add related list items. I didn't tell you. I want you to Google it and find it out and do it, because that gives you that, that gives you that ability to be able to, what you call, work with the unknown. Okay. I just want you guys to be used to that because I see lots of people, lots of developers, junior developers, everybody, every day in my work where they're spoon-fed. When there is a question, even without doing any research, they just come back like, hey, I have this question. How do I do it? How do I do it? Like by giving solutions, I'm learning from them. Like whenever you bring a question to me, I'm learning from that question, but you are not learning anything. So that's why, I just want you to do these things. So it would be a good exercise for you. And the end goal of this 5 minutes stupid conversation is, there is Like, there is no concept of, oh, somebody working for 10 years versus somebody working for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't matter. Okay? I mean, I'm sure you all watch sports, right? If only experience is the thing that matters, I'm sure, people who are playing the game for past 20, 15 years should always score more than the debutants are, like, people who have been playing the game for 1, 2 years. Does that happen? No, absolutely not. It just depends on how the day is, how patient they are, how they are dealing with it. It's the same here too. It doesn't matter whether you're working for 20 years or 10 years. It just matters on how you're dealing with those 5 or 10 minutes. Okay? All right. That's the topic that we want to cover, right? Record types and page layouts. And I wanted you to give the assignment. What topic do we have tomorrow? I think tomorrow we have this topic of I sent you the invite, right? Let me see.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Data loader and VLOOKUP.
Oh yes. Oh man, data loader is like my favorite thing. I know I say this thing to everybody, but again, data loader. If you master data loader, even if you don't master any of these things, but if you know how to use data loader, you can be a great BA. You can be a great admin. You can be a great developer too. Like, data loader teaches you so many things. I think, Ramesh, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. So I have a question. Like, whatever we are learning right now, like from the starting onward, like, is it like it comes under like administrator side or like a developer side, or like a what is that like? Because like when I have gone through like certifications, so there are like choose your role. Like it's asking me administrator or architect or developer or marketer or consultant. So like whatever we are learning come under all these roles or not? We have to
It
apply.
comes under admin. It comes under admin.
Okay.
Okay. And also developer. Even in developer role, there is a platform developer 1 exam. So even that covers the whole thing. Like, I think the topics that we are covering are covered under the developer certificate. In developer certification, there is a platform developer 1. So the topics are covered under platform developer 1 and also covered under Salesforce administrator as well. Like, those are the topics are mutually interrelated between these two certifications.
Okay. So when we are in the market, like we need to apply for this administrator role and developer role. That's it, or like we cannot apply for
That's
this.
it. I mean, those will be the 2 roles that are available. I mean, of course, when you say developer, we need to go a bit more further. Like, we need to start coding as well. Like, we need to learn about triggers. We need to learn about how Apex works. So we just cannot call ourselves developers just yet. But yeah, administrator, yeah. I mean, administrator means there are other things too. Like, we are learning the configuration piece of it, but there are a lot of things that are just out of the box. When I say out of the box, you need to give access to users. You need to, like maintain some groups and stuff like that. And those things are, depending on when you get it, those are not hard. Like, you just look through the document and you'll be able to do it. And even if you do not do it like right away, if you look at the document and do it, nobody bothers or nobody cares about it. So yeah, there is still a little bit journey left for us to call ourselves developers, but yeah, admins. But one thing that you need to notice here is, in Salesforce, the distinction, like, if you are in database world or if you are in any other technology, the distinction between admin and developer is so obvious. Like, admins will be managing the applications, giving access and all. Developers will be like doing hardcore coding. But I think in Salesforce, the distinction is not so obvious. The reason being, let's say I'm a developer, okay? I got a requirement, to build some huge application and all that. No matter, like, just because I'm a developer doesn't mean I go right in and start writing code, right? when I'm building that app, I still have to create an app. I still have to create objects. I still have to create fields. I still have to give, make fields required, write validations and all that stuff. And only when something is not possible through this configuration item, that's when I would go to code. So even as a developer, I worked in one of my initial projects, the first project that I worked. My role is called developer, like technical lead or something like that. But in 9 months or 10 months that I worked there, I didn't even write 5 lines of code. But I've done so many things. Like I created apps, I created lots of features. Like I've used a valid, from their perspective, from the business perspective, it's development because I'm creating apps and I'm doing all these things. But from my perspective, I haven't written a single line of code. Probably I've written 2-3 lines. But that's why the distinction is not very clear. Developers also have to, when you call yourself a developer, you have to be an admin and then you have coding skills. But if you call yourself an admin, you just don't need coding skills. That's it.
Okay,
you can never be a good developer in Salesforce without knowing the administration piece. You can never, ever be a good Salesforce developer without knowing the administration piece.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I have the class schedule already for 10 o'clock tomorrow, so I'll see you guys tomorrow then.
Hello, Shravan?
Yes.
I was just seeing that I think you have given the link, all the recordings till 13th session. So if you can update that, because you know that I'll not be able to attend tomorrow and day after.
Yeah, I can. I'll update it. Yes.
Yeah, I have those recordings till today, but only for the weekend because
Yeah.
in the
Sure,
daytime I
I'll
can just
update
refer
that.
them, and by Monday I can be with you on the same page.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much.